Okay, so the next step for me is that I'm going to create the entity data model, and I'm going to make sure that my persistence layer can access it. My concern always is getting that connection correct, because we're going to define the entity data model in the persistence layer, but the database sits in the presentation layer in the web project. Just by the nature of how you deploy projects in ASP.NET, and it's a long story. I'm not even sure I completely understand it, honestly, but I want to make sure that works before we go any further. So to get started on this, what I'm going to do is let's close up everything here. I'm going to right click on the persistence project and select add new item. And here what I want to do is go to data, and I'm going to choose the entity data model, and I'm going to call this Papa Bob's entities, like so. Click add. Opens up the entity data model wizard. I'm going to select EF Designer from database. We'll choose all the typical options. Yeah, and this is where things get a little confusing. The connection you selected uses a local data file that's not in the current project. Would you like to copy that file to the project, to the persistence layer project, and modify the connection? I'm going to select no here, and that's pretty important. We don't want the file to be copied to the persistence layer. When we deploy things, all these projects that are class libraries are going to be compiled and added to the bin folder of the ASP.NET Web Forms project, and everything's going to be relative to that project when we deploy it out to our servers. So we'll select no. We're going to move on to Entity Framework 6.x. Yes, yes, yes. And we're going to go to tables. Yes, that looks good. Papa Bob's DB model, just fine. Click finish. So now we get our entity data model just fine. All right, so now at this point, what I want to do is I'm going to make sure that I can connect to it. So I'm going to go here into the persistence layer, and I'm going to rename this class. Actually, let me rename the class. I'm going to call this order repository. And I know, as we said before, repository doesn't have the same connotation to you maybe as it has to me, but it's a design pattern, and I talk about it when we talk about application architecture, architecting the persistence layer. It's a series that comes much later in your education, in the curriculum, than now, but you'll learn more about the repository pattern and why I'm naming it repository and why I'm going to take the approach that I'm going to take. All right, would you like to rename the file as well? Or actually, do you want to rename? Yeah. Okay, good. So we renamed the file, it renamed the public class. And now I'm going to do public static, let's just do void for now, but in the future I'm going to change this to return a list of DTO order. Okay, for now we'll just do it this way. Create order, and again in the future I'm going to pass in a DTO order. Actually, no. We're going to return a void no matter what. It'll return an exception if something doesn't happen correctly, but we're going to pass in an order from the domain layer. But I'm going to hard code things for now just to make sure that the connection strings are set up and everything and get that working. All right, so there should be an order as defined inside of the Papa Bob's entities EDMX. So what I should be able to do is var db equals new Papa Bob DB entities. Yeah, I guess that's okay. And then come back to that in a second. And then we need new order. So var order equals new order. And then order ID equals GUID dot. And again, this is just test code that I'm going to throw away eventually. But I'm going to put some data in here. So we'll put for the size equals 1. Order.crust equals 0. Again, just dummy data. Order.pepperoni equals true. Order.name equals test. order.address equals 123 Elm. Order.zip equals 12345. Order.phone equals 555. Order dot, now what do we want? Payment type equals, we'll go cash, which should be 1. Order dot, what am I missing here? I think I got everything right. Oh, total cost, yeah, we need that, equals $16.50, and that's going to be a decimal, right? Yeah, so the M, whenever you're creating a hard-coded decimal value, in other words, when you're creating a decimal literal, you need to use the letter M at the very end of the numeric. If you remove the M, then it becomes a double, and you're going to have a cast issue, like you see right here. Okay, represents a double precision, but we don't want the double data type. We want the decimal data type, because that's what the entity framework turns a small money SQL Server data type into on the C# side. All right, I think that's all the information I need here. It'll let me know if I don't. So then I should be able to do dborders.add and then put that order in there, and all should be good. All right, so let's then do this. Let's go and drive a spike of functionality all the way from the web all the way down to our order repository here. So to do that, I'm going to go to the domain layer and I'm going to rename this to Order Manager, because I feel like the term manager denotes orchestration, which is one of the responsibilities of the domain layer, to orchestrate all of the domain objects together and to perform a task. So we'll call this Order Manager. And yes, I'm going to change that. So we'll go public void create order, and all I'm going to do here is just going to call persistence.order repository.create order, like so. Okay. That should work. And then finally, I'm going to call that from the web project. So let's right click and select add. Unfortunately, this pops off to the edge of the screen. Add a new web form. Call this default. Let's just put a button on here for now. We'll come back, obviously, and we'll make it beautiful. Right there. Is that right? Yeah, that's good. And so on click equals button one click. Great. And so here we'll go. What are we going to do here? Domain dot order manager dot. Whoops! What did I make a mistake here? What is that? Where did I get that from? Where's the domain? Public void static. All right, because I don't need to create an instance of of the order manager in order to call that method. So back here, order manager dot create order, like so. And so now, I know I'm going to get an error the first time I run this, but let's just see what it looks like. So if you get this error, you'll know what we're dealing with here. Okay. So no connection string name Papa Bob's DB entities could be found in the application config file. All right, now how do we fix this? Well, this is what I was telling you about in the hint for this project. You're going to need to go into the web config. You're going to need to add some stuff right here. What do you need to add? Well, we're going to grab the stuff from the persistence layer in the app config where all of this entity framework and connection string stuff was originally configured. So we're going to grab everything inside of there and everything in between the configuration and configuration XML tags. We're going to go to the web config and we're going to stick it right here, right above the system.web that was already there. Okay, that's step number one. Step number two is that we're going to need to add the entity framework to our Papa Bob's web project. So I'm going to right click the web project and select manage NuGet packages at the top. And here we're going to go to the online section and search for Entity Framework, like so. And I'm going to click Install. Accept. All right, I'm going to hit Close now. And let's see, say yes, yes, yes to all that. Good. All right, let's see if we got this working. Close everything down because I'm confused at this point. Let's go to the top, right click, select build solution. Okay, that seemed to work. So let's see if we can get this working now. Okay. All right. So we didn't get an error, didn't get any feedback. Let's take a look at the database itself and see if we do have data in the table. So I'm going to right click and say show table data. Dang it, it did not save it in there. What did I do wrong? Oh, I'm a knucklehead. Completely forgot the most important step. You're probably sitting there thinking, Bob, you forgot the most important piece of information of all, and that would be to call db.savechanges. All right, good. Okay, so let's run the application now. Oh. All right, and at this point, what you want to do is right-click Papa Bob's Web, right-click and select Set as Startup Project, so you don't get that error message anymore. Go ahead and run it. Alrighty. Okay, it looked like something happened. I saw some jiggling around here in my Solution Explorer when I clicked that button. Now we should be able to look here. Let's refresh this, and there should be a row data, and there is. Okay, so got that wired up correctly. Now, admittedly, I'm going to throw away a lot of this, but I drove a spike of functionality all the way through from top to bottom. So I know that the references work. I know that I got my database wired up correctly. And one of my biggest concerns about the project is now behind me. And so the next thing we need to do now is to really flesh out the order repository, the order manager, get those working correctly, and then we can wire it up to the presentation layer. So we'll start doing that in the next lesson. See you there.